You must understand this. Women do not need you to be their psychologist. They do not fall for the most handsome man, the smartest man, or even the most attentive man. They bond with the man who creates emotional impact. Attachment does not come from affection alone. It comes from presence, from the way a man quietly changes the emotional atmosphere around him without begging, chasing, or asking for permission. And the fascinating thing is, he does not need grand gestures to do it. In fact, grand gestures often fail because they look like effort. True attachment is created through small, almost invisible actions, tiny moments, subtle behaviors, quiet signals that the mind records as something different. When a woman becomes emotionally attached, it is rarely a conscious decision. She does not sit there and think, "I am going to become attached to this man." It happens beneath the surface. Her emotions begin to recognize a pattern. This man is different. This man sees me. This man is calm. This man does not need me, but he still chooses to be here. And that pattern creates the foundation of attachment. Not words, not compliments, not romantic speeches, but 6 invisible actions that make your presence unforgettable. This is not about manipulation. This is about becoming a man with rhythm, emotional control, and inner weight. Let us begin. The first action is this: break her predictability without breaking her security. A woman becomes emotionally invested when a man gives her both safety and mystery. Too much predictability and her emotions fall asleep. Too much chaos and her defenses go up. But in the space between both, attraction begins to deepen. Most men fall into one of 2 traps. Either they become too routine, too available, too easy to read, or they try so hard to be mysterious that they look unstable. Both are mistakes. The man who creates attachment understands something important. Attention is not forced, it is interrupted. You interrupt her emotional rhythm when she cannot fully predict your next move. Not because you are playing games, not because you are being confusing, but because you are moving according to your own life, your own values, and your own timing. You do not respond just to please her. You respond because that is what feels right to you. You do not speak to gain approval. You speak because you have clarity. And that subtle difference changes everything. Because when a woman cannot fully read you, her mind starts to pay closer attention. She starts replaying your tone, your pauses, your silence, your reactions. She begins to wonder what you truly think. And the moment her mind starts analyzing you, you are no longer just another man. You become a question, and questions hold attention. But here is the important part. You must never break her sense of safety. Mystery without stability becomes anxiety. Unpredictability without emotional control becomes chaos. She must feel that you are grounded, that you are not acting from insecurity, that you are not trying to confuse her. Your energy must say, "I am solid in my world. I do not need your validation, but I could still surprise you." That is the balance. Safety and suspense, stability and emotion, calm and curiosity. When your behavior is consistent with your values but unpredictable in expression, you become difficult to categorize. And what cannot be easily categorized becomes difficult to forget. That is where attachment begins, not from the man who chases, but from the man whose silence still speaks in her thoughts. The second action is this: create sensory experiences that her mind cannot forget. Attachment does not come only from what you say. It comes from what someone feels when they are around you. Words fade. Gifts lose their novelty. Even physical attraction can become familiar, but the body remembers how it felt in someone's presence. It remembers your voice. Low, calm, measured. It remembers your movements. Slow, deliberate, grounded. It remembers your silence. Not empty silence, controlled silence. When you hold eye contact without rushing, without needing approval, without discomfort, something changes. Your presence begins to feel different. Most men talk too much. They move too quickly. They fill every silence because they are afraid of the space. But a man with emotional control does not rush to fill the room. He creates atmosphere. He understands that attraction does not only live in words. It lives in rhythm, in tone, in pauses, in the way silence feels when he is present. When he walks into a room, his energy is not loud, it is grounded. He is not trying to dominate. He is simply anchored. That kind of calm becomes contagious. His stillness feels powerful because it is not forced. When he speaks, he lets the silence before and after his words give them weight. And without realizing it, she begins to feel different around him. Her thoughts slow down. Her body becomes more aware. Her attention sharpens. That is not just attraction. That is emotional gravity. Her mind begins to connect your presence with a specific feeling. Calm, depth, curiosity, intensity. And the more often she feels that around you, the more your presence becomes an emotional anchor. She begins to feel more when you are near and less when you are gone. That contrast matters because people become attached to emotional states, not just faces, not just words, not just names. They become attached to how they feel around someone. So do not just try to impress her. Create an experience. Be calm enough to make her feel safe, strong enough to make her feel emotion, still enough to make her notice the silence. When your presence becomes a state she cannot recreate with anyone else, she will remember you even when you are not there. The third action is this: master the art of intermittence. Nothing creates deeper emotional tension than the right balance of presence and absence. Not constant attention, not total distance, but rhythm, appearing with intensity, then returning to your own life, being present when you are present, but not being permanently available. In psychology, this is connected to variable reward. When something is always available, the brain stops reacting strongly to it. When something disappears completely, the mind eventually lets it go. But when something meaningful appears with rhythm, space, and intensity, the mind begins to anticipate it. This is why constant attention often loses power. If you are always texting, always replying, always checking in, always available, your presence becomes normal, and what becomes normal often stops feeling special. But if you have your own rhythm, your own priorities, your own purpose, your presence begins to carry more value. You are not absent to punish. You are not distant to manipulate. You are simply not living around her schedule. Your life has movement. Your attention has direction. Your energy has limits. That makes your presence rare, and rarity creates value. The key is authenticity. Do not fake distance. Do not pretend to be busy. Do not disappear just to create anxiety. That is weak. Real intermittence comes from having a real life, a mission, work, goals, training, friends, purpose, something that truly requires your attention. When your silence comes from focus, it feels different. When your absence comes from purpose, it creates curiosity instead of insecurity. A man who is busy building himself does not need to perform mystery. His life already creates it. His purpose creates scarcity. His rhythm creates anticipation. And when he returns, his presence feels stronger. That is how you stop being an option. You become a pattern her mind notices, a rhythm she begins to feel, a presence that means something when it appears. The fourth action is this: make her express herself without feeling judged. One of the most powerful things a man can offer is emotional safety, not by constantly saying, "I understand," not by trying to fix everything, but by being calm enough to let someone be real. Most men, do not listen. They wait for their turn to speak. They interrupt. They give advice too quickly. They try to fix the problem before they even understand the emotion. But the man who creates deep attachment listens differently. He does not rush. He does not judge. He does not panic when emotions appear. He remains steady. And that steadiness creates safety. Many people, especially those who appear strong on the outside, are used to protecting themselves emotionally. They have learned that vulnerability can be punished, that honesty can lead to rejection, that showing too much can make them look weak. So when they meet someone who can hear them without judging them, something inside softens. They feel seen, not watched, not analyzed, seen. That feeling is rare, and rare feelings leave deep marks. A woman does not bond with the man who solves every problem. She bonds with the man who can stay grounded while she is emotionally open. The man who does not flinch when she reveals what she usually hides. The man who can witness her truth without turning it into drama. That kind of presence becomes unforgettable, because with him she feels, I can be myself without losing value. That is emotional freedom, and emotional freedom creates a stronger bond than shallow attraction. Desire can fade, excitement can change, but the memory of being truly seen stays. So learn to listen without rushing. Let silence exist. Let emotion breathe. Do not immediately correct. Do not immediately rescue. Do not make her vulnerability about you. Just be steady. Because the man who can hold emotional space without losing himself becomes more than exciting. He becomes safe. And safety, when combined with strength, is one of the deepest forms of attraction. The fifth action is this: show interest without dependence. This is where most men fail. They confuse interest with need. Interest creates attraction. Dependence destroys it. A woman does not become attached to the man who worships her. She becomes attached to the man who sees her clearly, values her genuinely, but does not need her to feel complete. That difference is felt immediately. When your energy says, my life is already whole, but I choose to share part of it with you, your attention feels valuable. It feels like a gift, not a request, not a plea, not a desperate attempt to be chosen. Most men chase. They text too fast. They over-explain. They rearrange their whole life. They make themselves constantly available. They think this proves interest. But often, it communicates lack. Because attention without boundaries starts to feel cheap. The man who creates attachment does not chase. He selects. He does not react to every signal. He chooses where his energy goes. His restraint says something powerful. I could, but I do not need to. That quiet control is magnetic. Because when someone senses that you are present by choice, not by dependence, your presence becomes more meaningful. She feels selected, not worshipped. There is a huge difference. Being worshipped can feed the ego. Being chosen by someone self-sufficient reaches deeper. When your life is full, you stop trying to receive emotional nourishment from her. You become grounded in yourself. Your purpose feeds you. Your discipline feeds you. Your progress feeds you. And because you are not empty, your attention does not feel needy. It feels clean, warm, but not desperate, interested, but not dependent, present, but not possessed. That is the balance. Show interest, be human, be real, be warm, but never become dependent. Never let your peace collapse because someone pulls away. Never let your focus disappear because someone gives you less attention. Never make another person the source of your identity. Because the moment you no longer need validation, your validation becomes more powerful. The moment you stop chasing approval, people begin to notice your approval more. Value is measured by what you can walk away from. If you cannot walk away, you are not choosing. You are clinging, and clinging kills attraction. The sixth action is this: leave a trace in her mind when you are gone. This is the most subtle action of all. It is not about what you do in the moment. It is about what remains after the moment ends. Real presence continues after you leave. It echoes, it stays in the mind. It returns through small triggers. A phrase, a tone, a memory, a silence, a certain way you looked at her, a certain pause before you spoke, a certain calmness she did not expect. These small details become emotional codes. And later, when she is back in her own world, something reminds her of you. A sound, a place, a scent, a message she almost sends, but does not. And suddenly, your presence returns in her mind. That is how someone becomes unforgettable. Not by being everywhere, but by leaving a feeling that cannot be easily replaced. Understand this. People remember how you made their nervous system feel. If your presence created both calm and curiosity, both safety and intensity, the mind stores that combination. And if no one else gives the same feeling, you become difficult to replace. That is the real goal. Not to control, not to dominate, not to force attachment, but to become an experience that stands apart. A man who is calm when others are chaotic. A man who is present without chasing. A man who listens without judging. A man who shows interest without need. A man who leaves silence behind, but not emptiness. That kind of man stays in the mind, because he is not just remembered as a person. He is remembered as a state. And when someone associates you with a state they cannot recreate elsewhere, they will keep thinking about you. Not because you begged, not because you chased, not because you forced anything, but because your presence created a contrast. Life felt different around you, quieter, deeper, sharper, more alive. That is what leaves a trace. So let us bring it all together. Break predictability without breaking security. Give mystery, but remain grounded. Create sensory experiences. Let your tone, silence, and rhythm become memorable. Master intermittence. Be present with intensity, then return to your purpose. Make her express herself without judgment. Offer emotional safety without losing your center. Show interest without dependence. Let your attention feel like a choice, not a need. And leave a trace when you are gone. Become the feeling her mind cannot easily replace. This is not about tricks. This is not about pretending. This is not about playing games with someone's emotions. This is about becoming the kind of man whose presence has weight. A man who does not chase attention because he already has direction. A man who does not beg for validation because he already respects himself. A man who does not need to dominate anyone because he has mastered himself. That is the real power. The weak man seeks attention. The strong man commands attention. But the grounded man becomes unforgettable without forcing anything. Because attraction is not built only with words. It is built in silence, in rhythm, in restraint, in emotional control, in the way you remain centered when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. So from this moment on, stop chasing, stop over-explaining, stop giving your attention away like it has no value. Build your life, control your rhythm, protect your peace, speak with clarity, listen with presence, and let your absence carry meaning. Because the man who masters himself does not need to chase the room feels him. And once your presence is felt even when you are gone, you are no longer ordinary, you are unforgettable.